Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charles Allen. I'm going to speak with you today a little bit about social media and business. Unfortunately, we were supposed to do this in person, and that has been curtailed by the local policies that have been put in place to, what are they calling it, flatten the curve. So today we'll present digitally and remotely. I apologize if this has some hiccups. You'll have to forgive me. We're going to do this in one shot without edits. So a little bit about me. My name is Charles Allen. I am the Global Financial Programs Lead for a Fortune 500 company. I am the son of your professor, David Allen. I'm also the owner of a small IT business in the KC Metro. I've been operating that business for about the last 8 years. I've been with my company for just over 10. Before that, I worked for Sears Holdings Corporation and was a member of the U.S. Armed Forces. So a couple of disclaimers before we get started here. I am not a lawyer, so don't take this information to be doctrine in the sense that you would use it in defense in court. Also, when I'm talking about businesses, I'm talking about business in general, specifically U.S. business, though I will speak a little bit about other regions, specifically Europe. I am not talking about the company I work for specifically and how they operate. Okay? Very big distinction to make there. So let's dive right in. So how do businesses use social media? Is it beneficial or is it questionable? And is it questionable to whom? We like to think of things as beneficial in terms of beneficial to us. But as a business is going to operate on a sense of, is this beneficial to the business? We're looking at businesses as a whole. If you are the manager of a business and you're not looking at generally an individual. So make sure when we talk about is this beneficial or questionable, we're looking at it through what lens, okay? Whose point of view? So how do businesses use social media? Some of the things that businesses do that we consider beneficial, and again, this is beneficial both to the business and to us as individuals, is customer outreach. This is things like Twitter accounts. If you have a problem with a particular business, if you have a problem with a product, you can often go to a Twitter or a Facebook account or some other form of social media, and you can request a response, and their social media team will see your hashtag or see your shout out, and they will forward it on to the right person. So you can actually get some rapid customer assistance. It's also used for marketing. If you use any social media app, you'll notice that there are forever ads scrolling by, and those ads are going to be targeted to things that you like, based on your search history, based on your post history, and things of that nature. This is also used for social agendas. So one of the big things is green. Everybody wants to be green. Companies boast about their LEED certifications. Companies boast about what they're doing in this market or another. And even today, very pressing in business today is face masks, right? 3M was able to bring on massive amounts of excess capacity that they built into their facilities that allowed them to bring these face masks forward and present them to be available to the markets in this time of need. Now we've got other companies that are doing the same. They're saying we can retool our processes, we can retool our plants to provide things like respirators and face masks. And so while they are using this as a benefit to all of us, they also use it as a marketing. They're saying, hey, look, we're going to put Nike on the front of all these face masks, or we're going to put whatever the case may be, and we're going to use that. We're going to put our name out there. We're going to donate these items, or we're going to sell them at cost, or whatever the case may be. But they're pushing a social agenda, and social agendas can be good. Social agendas can be bad. We can be pushing an agenda that says, cheap oil, don't use fracking, or we can be a company that does fracking, which is pressurized fracturing of the earth to get liquid propane and natural gases out, if anyone doesn't know. And if you're one of those companies, you might be saying, we're cleaner than our competitors. So social agendas, again, not always positive, but they are something that they use. Another thing business uses beneficially to both the business and to us as individuals is research. They're researching trends. They're researching what is popular, whether this be Nike looking for what type of shoes people are looking for and in what colors, or whether this is Aldi or the buyers for Sam's Club looking to see what type of foods people are really into right now, and how they can make sure those types of produce or those types of exotic vegetables or whatever are available for you and I to use as consumers. They also do what's called novel use research. So a lot of times we'll make a product, and if I don't know, I can't even think of a product right now. Well, they'll make a product, and they'll make a product like what are those paper protectors, those clear sheet paper protectors. And people are now using them to make face masks, right? Now this is kind of extreme, but what companies are looking at is, hey, we make this product and we make it for use A, but there's this novel use out there, right? Our consumer base has actually found another use for our product. And then what they could do is adjust that product so that they can market towards that use. They could even improve upon that product so it's specifically made for that use. These are the type of things that companies are looking for. How can we take an existing product and get more mileage, get more money out of it? On the other side, on this kind of a black square area, are these items that they're good for the business, but maybe not good for us as individuals, okay? So one of the things businesses do is they monitor employees. This happens a lot. They're monitoring what you post. And I don't mean while you're sitting in the office posting things. I mean what you post at home. If you've associated yourself on something like LinkedIn or Facebook or otherwise with this company, they can go and look and see what these people are posting. And if they see these trends are going towards the negative, maybe we have a problem with confidence, or maybe we have a problem with morale at our company. If they see, and I apologize, someone is trying to get a hold of me. Let me mute this. If they see that people are posting positive things, they might even highlight these at social events or on their own social media. They also are looking for how employees talk about one another. This is a good measure, again, of morale. This is also a measure of loyalty. That may be a tricky word to use, right? What they want to see is people disagree, and we disagree fairly regularly with one another. But what they're looking for is, are employees attacking one another online? Are people doing things that we don't enjoy, we don't like, we don't want to put forth as our corporate culture? Okay. The other thing that they do that falls kind of into that good for the business, but maybe not for us as person, is this negative impact. So this is things like attack ads. Again, we talked about that social agenda where people are pushing green. So if I'm a fracking company, I'm doing liquid and natural gas exploration and production, I may push that we are more green than oil. Well, that's great. That's a social agenda. We're pushing a green social agenda to help our business. But on the same time, they will often make these ads attacks. So instead of just saying we're more green than oil, they could show all the negative impacts of oil. And they might even call out a competitor and say, hey, this oil company is doing all these terrible things, or they have this terrible track record, but we don't. These are kind of negative attack ads. And while they are effective from a business standpoint, us as consumers and us as individuals, this may not be so good for. The other thing that happens is false and misleading information. Now, it would be very hard in many cases to pin true, false, or misleading information on a company. But we know that there have been cases in the past where companies have either leaked data or otherwise, right? And they've put out this information that could lead a consumer to draw a bad conclusion. And when you draw a bad conclusion, you tend to act on a bad conclusion. You might spread this bad conclusion, etc. So whether or not they're putting out things that are truly false, or they're just putting out data that leads you to draw a bad conclusion, it's still not good for us as consumers. It's not good for us as people, but it may be very, very good for the business. The next thing we need to talk about really is this ideal of digital permanence. Right? Everything you put online is there forever. I'm going to say it a couple more times. So everything you put online is there forever. When we say this, you guys need to assume several things. We need to assume that anything that you send by digital means will be available to viewers at some point. Remember, there are hacks. We hear about it constantly, data breaches, hacks on this database or that, emails leaked. Everything you do, everything that exists today in digital format will at some point be viewable by somebody other than who it was intended by. It's simply, we are at a point in time where technology is evolving, things weren't secure, every new firewall and way to secure our data, someone creates a new way to get past it. Okay, so we must assume that we must really hit on these 4 points. So we must assume anything that we send by digital means will be available to viewers at some point. We must assume that anything you put online will be used against you in the court of public opinion. And I'm going to circle back to that in a minute. So what we're talking about is that teenage rant against whatever that you put out. This is going to be viewable by anybody that looks hard enough. If you have photos out there of you doing something questionable, or even benign photos, but they appear that you're doing something questionable, someone's going to find those. So one of the things that we need to talk about is this, assume everything you put out there will be used against you in the court of public opinion. I'm not saying that you shouldn't put your opinion out there. I'm not even saying that you can't put your opinion out there or that you can't have strong opinions. What I'm saying is you will be held accountable for anything you put online at some point. Or you could be held accountable. Not that you necessarily will, but if you decide to run for public office, be a youth pastor, be a pastor at a church, run a business, someone is going to call you out on anything that could be questionable in your past. And you're going to have to own it. You're going to have to be able to explain it, and you're going to have to take accountability for that post, or that picture, or that like, or whatever the case may be. Okay. There's also something that people like to bring up when we talk about this. In 2014, in the European Union, they passed a law called the right to be forgotten. It's also known as the right to erasure. This law says that you can, by court order, request that any digital history of you be deleted. That sounds really good, right? So if you're a politician or any of these classes of people we talked about, or even just Joe Schmo, and you realize that, hey, I did stupid things in my past, I'm not proud of these things, I'd like them not to haunt me for the rest of my life. I'm going to sue, or I'm going to get this law on my side. I'm going to get a court order that says I have to be forgotten. The problem is, circle back to our previous point, everything online is there forever. So while you can get a court order that says delete these things, it has this very limited scope. It's really only for European citizens, and only by court order, and then they can only really enforce it by businesses that do business in Europe. And generally everybody does business in Europe, and everybody does business everywhere. If the servers aren't hosted in Europe, it might be really hard to enforce. And so in many cases, you might get some things deleted, but because of retweets and relikes and reshares and shares and this and that and the next thing, the data, any bad data, anything that you would want removed has probably been copied onto a server over which the European Union has no domain. So again, we circle back to everything you've ever done digitally is there forever. The best thing to do would be not do things that you're not proud of, not do things that you don't want to have to defend in the future. So how do employees use social media? We talked about how businesses use it. Let's talk about how employees use it. And specifically, is this your time? Is this your private space? And is this even your data? So is your private account private? If I haven't said this enough, no. Anything you do online is there forever. Anyone who's willing to pay enough money can have access to what you put. That post that you only shared with your mom and dad, I guarantee someone can get access to it, okay? It has become very common practice that companies have used what people have posted on their private social media accounts as a reason to terminate employees. If you go on a rant online about how terrible your employer is, or how stupid this person was, or how you feel you've been mistreated, or this, that, the next thing, you could well be fired for it. You should not assume that anything you do online is private. If I haven't hammered that into you yet, let me say it again. Do not assume anything that you do online is private. Even if you're right, even if what you said is, let's say, protected, even if what you said is valid, the person at work was doing something inappropriate, the person at work or the boss is mistreating you, etc. There are ways to handle that. And even if you're right, if you put it out there on social media and they fire you for it, you may have a basis to sue. But suing is not the way to make up for lost time. It's not the way to make a career, and it's not the way to make money. Ultimately, what you're going to do is have to trade your time and a lot of pain and heartache to right the wrong that was done to you based on something you posted online. So don't do it. Okay? Posting online is akin to standing on a digital street corner with a bit of libel thrown in. If what you say online is inaccurate and causes harm to a business, you could well be legally liable for it. So what about social media at work, right? So we're sitting at work, we're playing on our phone, we're doing different things. Is this your time or is it company time? And is it your data or is it company data? So one of the big issues that we face in business today is this theft of time by employees. And this is specifically with them using social media. Now it also happens with video games and other things, but what we're talking about here is people picking up this digital device and typing on it for 15 minutes here and 10 minutes there and 20 minutes there. And ultimately, you wouldn't fathom going down to the restaurant downstairs for 20 minutes at a time, 4 to 5 times a day to chat with your friends in the middle of the workday. Your boss would fire you for it. They would look at you and go, hey, why aren't you at your desk? Why aren't you working? I'm paying you, but you're not here. But we do this. We do it every day. We do it by playing social media, by playing video games with friends on our phones. We're stealing. Ultimately, this is unethical, right? Whether we look at this biblically or whether we look at this through a business lens, we're really saying that we're being paid for our time, but we're going to use that time to do whatever we want and not be productive. So I'm being paid to create, I'm being paid to do, I'm being paid to listen, whatever I'm being paid to do, but I'm not performing that action because I'm doing things on social media. So it's a massive theft of time. In fact, depending on what studies you look at, they say somewhere between 8 and 20% of time is wasted doing things on people's phones or devices or social media. Those numbers are staggering when you look at payroll numbers across the US. So that's point A, but then point B, let's talk about the data, right? So if I'm sitting at my work computer and I am typing an email, and I'm typing an email to my gas company, I'm trying to get things settled with them, or I'm trying to do something for school, or whatever the case may be, I'm sitting at a work computer. I'm sitting, I'm using a computer that my company has provided to do work for me, right? So I'm doing personal business on a work computer, or if I'm not doing personal business on a work computer, I may be doing personal business on work time. So is this your data that's created, or is it the company's? That really depends on where you're located. So here in the US, the general line of thinking is that if you're doing anything personal, but you're doing it on work time, and again, time, regardless of device, or you're doing it on a work device, regardless of when, that data becomes company data, right? They can look at it, they can use it, they can manipulate it, right? The other thing that we get into, and so that may not portray to you guys, but let me give you a real world example. You are using a company computer as a programmer. You program stuff for your company. You have this great idea for this app. You work on it on the company computer. The company has a stake and possibly even ownership of that app. You come up with a unique idea. You're a mechanic and you make a unique tool. You're working for a church and you have this great idea for a new ministry or a new branded, I don't know, counseling. The person you're working for may have a legitimate claim against it. Now, again, I said that matters where you are in the world, right? So this is the case in the US. This is one of the big cases, like we talked about the right to be forgotten in Euro, where in the European Union, this is one of those big cases where it differs geographically. In Europe, as well as Latin America, which follows mainly the European standard, your data is your data. And I say that again, I'm going to go back to that disclaimer. I'm not a lawyer, but this has come up many times in my business and in the day-to-day job I do for my Fortune 500 company. So if you are an employee in Europe or Latin America and you're doing personal work on company time, it's your personal data. The company actually may not be able to view it. If you're using a company device and doing personal stuff, it's still your data. And so what they actually run into is problems, if you get fired and they need to look through your emails to do customer contacts or whatever the case may be, they might actually have to get your permission because they might view your personal emails while they're viewing company emails. So again, this is one of those fuzzy areas where it depends on where you are geographically, and it's best just to steer clear. If you need to do personal business on a personal device at your own time. Okay? We don't want to be unethical. We don't want to steal from our employer. We don't want to steal time from our employer. Spend the time you're being paid by your employer to work, be productive. Spend the rest of the time doing your stuff, right? The more productive you are, get out on time, don't stay late, enjoy your family, enjoy whatever you like to do. So guys, this has been a quick presentation. I apologize if I had any errors or misspoken words. Forgive me, we did this in one shot. Hopefully I will be able to join you guys for a question and answer session on Thursday. In the meantime, if you have any questions, direct them to your professor, David Allen. Thank you very much. Have a good evening.